In the crisp autumn morning of 2157, humanity's greatest fear and darkest expectation finally materialized. The Nexian warships appeared without warning, their obsidian hulls reflecting Earth's sunlight like polished mirrors. They positioned themselves strategically around major cities, their presence as silent as it was menacing. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at her observatory in Montana, her hands trembling as she studied the readings. The energy signatures from these ships dwarfed anything humanity had ever recorded. As Earth's leading genophysicist, she understood better than most the technological gulf between humanity and their visitors. The first transmission came exactly 3 hours after their arrival. The Nexian ambassador, a tall crystalline being with fractal patterns rippling across its surface, appeared on every screen worldwide. Its voice resonated with an artificial warmth that barely masked its contempt. People of Earth, we are the Nexian Empire. Your world possesses quantities of quantum crystalline formations that are essential to our civilization's survival. We offer you a choice. Surrender these resources willingly, and we shall compensate you with technology that will advance your species by centuries. Refuse, and we shall take them by force. The United Earth Council convened immediately in Geneva. Dr. Chen watched the proceedings from her lab, her heart sinking as she realized the true implications of the Nexian demand. The quantum crystalline formations they sought weren't just rare minerals, they were the fundamental building blocks of Earth's magnetic field. Surrendering them would essentially doom the planet. Admiral James Torres, his weathered face grave, addressed the council. The Nexian ships utilize technology we can barely comprehend. Our most advanced weapons would be like throwing stones at a fortress. But he paused, a glint appearing in his eyes. They're making one critical mistake. Dr. Chen leaned forward, intrigued. She had worked with Torres before, and knew that look. It was the same expression he had worn when proposing what many had called impossible defense strategies. Strategies that had ultimately proved successful. They're assuming that technological superiority equals absolute superiority, Torres continued. They expect us to either submit or attempt to fight them conventionally. They don't understand that humanity's greatest weapon has never been our technology. It's our ability to think differently. Over the next 48 hours, while the Council officially deliberated with the Nexians, something extraordinary happened. Through encrypted channels and hidden networks, humanity began to mobilize in ways the aliens couldn't detect. Dr. Chen found herself at the heart of it, working with a diverse team of scientists, soldiers, and strategists. They discovered something remarkable about the Nexian ships. Despite their advanced technology, they operated on predictable patterns, patterns that could be studied, understood, and potentially exploited. The aliens' very perfection was a weakness. They had evolved beyond the need for adaptation, beyond the necessity of thinking outside established parameters. As the deadline for Earth's response approached, Dr. Chen made a breakthrough. The Nexians' crystalline biology made them vulnerable to something so basic that it had been overlooked: sonic disruption at specific frequencies. Their technology, based on similar principles, shared the same weakness. Admiral Torres immediately understood the implications. "We don't need to match their technology," he said, a fierce grin spreading across his face. "We just need to use what we have in ways they never expected." The Nexian ambassador's final ultimatum came just as Earth had finished its preparations. "Your time for deliberation has ended. What is your answer?" The response came not from the Council, but from thousands of locations simultaneously. Every speaker, every sound system, every audio device on Earth began broadcasting at precisely calculated frequencies. The effect was instantaneous. The Nexian ships' perfect crystalline structures began to resonate, their seemingly impervious shields vibrating at their natural frequency. The aliens, confident in their superiority, had never considered defending against something as primitive as sound waves. They had expected missiles, lasers, or perhaps crude nuclear weapons. Instead, humanity had turned their entire planet into a weapon, using technology that would have seemed primitive to the Nexians. As their ships began to lose structural integrity, the Nexian ambassador's composed demeanor finally cracked. This is impossible. You are a primitive species. You cannot. We are humanity, Dr. Chen transmitted back, her voice calm but firm. And you're learning what many before you have discovered. Never confuse technological advancement with superiority. The Nexian fleet retreated in disarray, their perfect formations shattered by the unprecedented attack. As the ships disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Torres turned to Dr. Chen. "They'll be back," he said quietly. "And next time, they'll be ready for this strategy." "Yes," she replied, allowing herself a small smile. "But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? By then, we'll have thought of something else they'll never expect. That's what they don't understand about humans. We're our most dangerous when we're cornered, and we never play the same game twice." As news of humanity's victory spread across the globe, a new understanding emerged. Humanity had proven itself not just to the Nexians, but to the galaxy at large. They had shown that true strength lies not in technological superiority, but in the ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to find unexpected solutions to impossible problems. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Yet for the first time since the Nexian ships appeared, humanity faced the future not with fear, but with determination. They had discovered their greatest weapon, the unpredictable, innovative spirit that had always defined their species. The victory against the Nexian Empire's first assault had bought Earth precious time, but humanity knew better than to celebrate prematurely. In the months that followed, the underground resistance transformed from a hastily assembled defense initiative into humanity's greatest hope for survival. Deep beneath the Scandinavian mountains, in a facility known only as the Hive, Dr. Chen worked tirelessly with a global team of scientists and engineers. The cavernous underground complex hummed with activity as they raced against time to prepare for the Nexians' inevitable return. "They'll have adapted their ship's resonance frequencies," Dr. Chen explained during a briefing with Admiral Torres and the newly formed Earth Defense Council. "We need something they won't expect. Again." She gestured to the holographic display showing their latest project, Operation Ghost Protocol. The plan was audacious. While the Nexians would be preparing defenses against Earth's sonic weapons, humanity would be developing something entirely different. They had learned from studying the residual energy signatures of the Nexian ships that the aliens relied heavily on quantum scanning technology to assess threats and plan their attacks. Captain Maya Rodriguez, a former quantum computing specialist turned military strategist, had proposed an ingenious solution. "If we can't match their technology," she argued, "we can confuse it, make it see what we want it to see." The result was the development of quantum mirror arrays, devices that could create false readings on Nexian scanners. These weren't just simple jamming devices. They were sophisticated systems that could project the appearance of military installations where there were none and mask the presence of real ones. But the true genius of humanity's preparation lay in its diversity. While some teams worked on technological solutions, others focused on biological countermeasures. Dr. James Chen, Sarah's brother and a leading biochemist, had made a startling discovery about the Nexians' crystalline biology. "Their physical structure is perfect, too perfect," he explained, pointing to molecular analyses. "They've engineered themselves to be virtually indestructible, but in doing so, they've lost the ability to adapt to unexpected environmental changes." This revelation led to the development of what the Resistance called evolutionary weapons, systems that could rapidly alter local environmental conditions in ways the Nexians' rigid biology couldn't handle. It wasn't about destroying them. It was about creating situations they couldn't adapt to. The Resistance didn't stop at defensive measures. Hidden facilities around the globe began producing what appeared to be primitive spacecraft. To Nexian scanners, they would look like desperate attempts at matching alien technology. In reality, each ship was designed to serve as a Trojan horse, carrying specialized disruption systems that could only work at close range. Admiral Torres oversaw the training of pilots for these ships, selecting candidates not for their traditional combat skills, but for their ability to think creatively under pressure. "The Nexians will expect us to either cower or charge straight at them," he told the recruits. "We're going to show them that humanity's greatest weapon is our unpredictability." As Earth's preparations continued, they received unexpected help. Other species who had suffered under Nexian oppression began making covert contact, sharing information about Nexian tactical patterns and technological vulnerabilities. These allies were amazed by humanity's innovative approach to resistance. "Your species thinks differently," a representative of the Arcturian collective transmitted secretly. "We fought the Nexians with technology and lost. You fight them with imagination, something they cannot comprehend." 3 months after the first attack, orbital sensors detected the first signs of a massive Nexian fleet assembling at the edge of the solar system. This time, they weren't sending a simple invasion force. They were deploying an armada. In the Hive's main control center, Dr. Chen watched the incoming data with a mixture of anxiety and determination. The Nexian fleet was larger than anything their allies had reported seeing before. The Empire was clearly determined to make an example of Earth. "They're afraid," Admiral Torres observed, studying the fleet formations. "Not of our technology, but of what we represent. We're the first species to ever drive them back, and we did it with technology they considered primitive. We've shaken their belief in their own superiority." Captain Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "And that's exactly why we'll win. They're fighting to preserve their pride, their sense of superiority. We're fighting for survival, for our right to exist as we are. That makes us far more dangerous than they can imagine." As the final preparations were made, Dr. Chen addressed the gathered resistance leaders. "The Nexians believe that progress only moves in one direction, toward more advanced technology, more perfect forms. They've forgotten that true evolution thrives on diversity, on the ability to adapt and change. They see us as primitive, but our primitive nature is exactly what makes us strong." The Resistance's response teams took their positions around the globe, ready to implement strategies that defied conventional military logic. They didn't need to match the Nexians' technology. They just needed to prove, once again, that humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to do the unexpected. As the Nexian armada approached Earth, humanity prepared to show the galaxy that sometimes the most effective response to overwhelming force isn't to try to match it, but to change the rules of engagement entirely. The upcoming battle would not be won by the most advanced weapons, but by the most adaptable minds. The stage was set for a confrontation that would either mark the end of human civilization or demonstrate to the galaxy that true power lies not in technological superiority, but in the endless capacity for innovation that defines the human spirit. The Nexian armada entered Earth's solar system with the confidence of an apex predator, their crystalline ships forming perfect geometric patterns across space. Their formation was a testament to their technological superiority and their greatest weakness. Operation Thunderstrike began not with a bang, but with silence. As the Nexian fleet approached Mars' orbit, they encountered nothing. No resistance, no defensive positions, not even active scanning from Earth. According to their quantum sensors, humanity had seemingly abandoned its outer solar system defenses. In the Hive's command center, Admiral Torres watched the holographic display with calculated patience. "Confirmation from all ghost arrays," Captain Rodriguez reported. "The Nexians are following the exact patrol patterns we predicted. They're not even considering that we might have learned from their first attack." The first phase of Thunderstrike relied on humanity's newest innovation, quantum mirage satellites. These devices, scattered throughout the solar system, worked together to create a massive sensor blind spot. To the Nexians' advanced scanning systems, the space between Mars and Earth's moon appeared empty. In reality, it was anything but. Dr. Chen monitored the environmental readings from her station. "The solar wind conditions are perfect," she announced. Better than we could have hoped for. Humanity's trap was elegant in its simplicity. The Nexians' crystalline technology relied on perfect resonance with quantum fields, a strength humanity had turned into a weakness. Solar radiation, properly channeled, could disrupt those fields in ways too subtle for the Nexians to detect until it was too late. Execute Phase 1. Admiral Torres commanded. Across the solar system, thousands of seemingly dormant satellites simultaneously activated, each releasing a carefully calibrated pulse of concentrated solar plasma. The pulses were harmless to conventional spacecraft, but to the Nexians' crystalline ships, they were like ripples in a pond, creating cascading disruptions in their quantum field harmonics. The effect wasn't immediately catastrophic. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it was insidious. The Nexian ship systems began experiencing subtle malfunctions, their perfect formation gradually degrading as their quantum navigation systems struggled to compensate. Phase 2. Torres ordered as the Nexian fleet reached the predetermined position. This was where humanity's apparent primitive nature became their greatest asset. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt were thousands of specially modified mining vessels, technology the Nexians had dismissed as too crude to pose any threat. These ships now emerged from their hiding spots, their simple electromagnetic harpoons launching clouds of magnetized dust. To advanced sensors, the dust was barely detectable. But as it settled on the Nexian ships' hulls, it began interfering with their crystalline resonance patterns. The Empire's mighty warships, designed to withstand the most sophisticated energy weapons, found themselves being compromised by something as basic as magnetic particles. They're responding exactly as predicted, Captain Rodriguez noted, watching the Nexian fleet break formation to deal with these unexpected complications. Their combat protocols can't process the idea that primitive technology could be a genuine threat. The true genius of Operation Thunderstrike lay in its third phase. As the Nexian fleet struggled with their degrading systems, they detected what appeared to be Earth's main defensive fleet approaching, a force that their sensors showed was attempting to copy Nexian technology, albeit crudely. The Nexian commander, following standard protocol, ordered his fleet to form up for a decisive engagement. It was exactly what humanity had planned for. Execute Final Phase. Torres commanded, a grim smile on his face. The approaching human fleet was real, but their apparent technological signature was another carefully crafted deception. Instead of trying to match Nexian technology, each ship carried what Dr. Chen had dubbed quantum cascade initiators, devices that could amplify the disruptions already affecting the Nexian fleet. As the two fleets engaged, the true nature of humanity's strategy became clear. The human ships, appearing primitive and vulnerable, drove straight into the heart of the Nexian formation. The Empire's commanders, convinced of their superiority, saw this as an act of desperation. Instead, it was the culmination of months of preparation. The quantum cascade initiators activated simultaneously, creating a resonance wave that synchronized with the accumulated disruptions from the solar plasma and magnetic dust. The effect was devastating. The Nexian ship's perfect crystalline structures, already compromised, began experiencing catastrophic harmonic failures. "We didn't try to beat their technology," Dr. Chen explained as they watched the Nexian fleet dissolve into chaos. "We used their own perfection against them. They were so focused on defending against what they thought we might become, they never considered we would use what we already were." The battle wasn't without cost. Several human ships were lost in the close-range engagement, but as the surviving Nexian vessels retreated in disarray, the message was clear. Humanity had once again proved that technological superiority alone was not enough to guarantee victory. In the aftermath, as the resistance forces regrouped and began assessing the damage, Admiral Torres addressed his command staff. "Today we proved something that will echo across the galaxy. We showed that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our weapons or our technology. It's in our ability to take what others see as weaknesses and turn them into advantages." The victory was significant, but no one in the command center celebrated. They knew this was just one battle in a longer war. The Nexian Empire would not take this defeat lightly, and their response would likely be even more dramatic than before. But for the first time, humanity had shown they could do more than just defend. They could strike back effectively against a technologically superior foe. The galaxy was about to learn that underestimating humanity's potential was a mistake that even the most advanced civilization couldn't afford to make. In the aftermath of Operation Thunderstrike, the Nexian Empire faced something they hadn't experienced in 10,000 years: uncertainty. Their defeat had sent shockwaves through their crystalline civilization, challenging fundamentals they had long taken for granted. High Commander Zix, Supreme Leader of the Nexian Empire, called an unprecedented meeting of the Crystal Council. For the first time in their history, the massive chamber beneath the surface of their homeworld wasn't filled with discussions of conquest, but of confusion. These humans, Zix's crystalline form pulsed with troubled energy patterns. They do not follow any logical progression of technological development. Their strategies defy all known combat algorithms. They use primitive tools in ways that shouldn't be possible. The Empire's defeat had triggered something unprecedented in Nexian society: debate. Some council members argued for overwhelming force, sending their entire fleet to crush Earth. Others, including a growing minority, suggested something radical: trying to understand humanity. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Resistance continued its preparations. Dr. Chen and her team had intercepted scattered fragments of Nexian communications, enough to know that the Empire was in turmoil. But rather than celebrating, they worked harder, knowing that a confused enemy could be even more dangerous than a confident one. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young Nexian scientist named Vex, assigned to analyze the debris from their defeated ships, made a discovery that would change everything. The humans hadn't just beaten the Nexian fleet, they had fundamentally altered the crystalline structures of their ships. The implications are disturbing, Vex reported to the Council. Their primitive technologies didn't just damage our ships. They forced our perfect crystals to adapt, to change their fundamental nature. They made our perfection imperfect. This revelation sparked a crisis in Nexian society. Their entire civilization was built on the principle of achieving and maintaining perfection. The idea that imperfection could be a source of strength challenged their most basic beliefs. The Empire dispatched observation probes to study human civilization more closely. What they found both fascinated and terrified them. Humans lived in a constant state of change and adaptation. Their societies weren't built on achieving perfection, but on continuous improvement and innovation. They embrace chaos, reported one Nexian observer. Their strength doesn't come from reaching a perfect state. It comes from never stopping, never becoming fixed in one form or method. They are constantly evolving, not toward perfection, but toward something else. Admiral Torres and Dr. Chen became aware of the increased Nexian surveillance, but rather than trying to hide, they made a bold decision. They let the aliens watch. Let them see humanity's apparent contradictions, its messy but effective problem-solving, its constant drive to try new approaches. The Nexians observe humans fixing advanced computers with primitive tools, combining old and new technologies in ways their logic couldn't predict, and most importantly, learning from failure instead of seeing it as a flaw to be eliminated. In the Crystal Council, the debates grew more intense. Their imperfection is their advantage, Vex argued, their crystalline form flickering with excitement. While we stopped evolving when we achieved perfection, they never stopped changing. Each defeat makes them stronger. Each challenge forces them to innovate. High Commander Zix, watching recordings of human children at play, making mistakes, learning, and trying again, finally understood. We have been perfect for so long, we forgot the power of adaptation. These humans, they are not primitive. They are in a constant state of becoming. The revelation spread through Nexian society like cracks in a crystal. Their defeat wasn't just military, it was philosophical. They had encountered a species that proved perfection might not be the ultimate goal of evolution. Dr. Chen, reviewing the latest intercepted Nexian communications, smiled as she translated their new designation for humans. The ever-changing ones. The empire that had dismissed them as primitive now viewed humanity with a mixture of fear and fascination. "They're starting to understand," she told Admiral Torres. "Not just our technology or our tactics, but our nature. They're realizing that what they saw as our greatest weakness, our imperfection, our constant state of flux, is actually our greatest strength." The resistance continued its preparations, knowing the Nexians' revelation could lead them down one of two paths. Either they would attempt to destroy humanity before this dangerous idea spread further, or they would be forced to reconsider their own path to perfection. As tension mounted across the solar system, humanity stood ready. They had shown the galaxy that true strength lay not in achieving perfection, but in the endless journey of growth and adaptation. The question now was whether the Nexians could accept this truth, or if their fear of change would drive them to one final desperate attempt to preserve their perfect but static existence. The final confrontation between humanity and the Nexian Empire began not with an invasion, but with a request. 3 months after their revelation about human nature, the Crystal Council did something unprecedented. They asked for a dialogue. The chosen meeting point was Lunar Base Alpha, humanity's first permanent settlement beyond Earth. The location itself was symbolic, a testament to how far humans had come using what the Nexians had once dismissed as primitive technology. Dr. Chen stood beside Admiral Torres as the Nexian delegation materialized in the base's conference chamber. High Commander Zix led the group, their crystalline form now displaying subtle imperfections, changes that would have been unthinkable in Nexian society just months before. "We have come to understand," Zix began, their voice carrying a new tone of humility, "that perfection, as we defined it, was actually a form of stagnation. Your species has taught us something we had forgotten over millennia of evolution." The human delegation listened as Zix explained how their study of humanity had triggered a fundamental shift in Nexian society. The Empire's defeat had sparked not just military changes, but a cultural revolution. Young Nexians had begun experimenting with imperfection, deliberately introducing variations into their crystalline structures to promote adaptation. But not all Nexians embraced this change. A faction led by Supreme Archon-Crix believed that these new ideas threatened the very foundation of their civilization. They had gathered a fleet of loyalists, determined to eliminate humanity before their dangerous philosophy of imperfection could spread further. "They are coming," Zix warned, "not just to destroy Earth, but to preserve what they see as the purity of our perfect state. They hesitated. "We request your help in stopping them." Admiral Torres exchanged glances with Dr. Chen. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The empire that had once threatened to annihilate humanity now sought their assistance. "You understand," Torres replied carefully, "that helping you means introducing even more change into your society. There's no going back to what you were before." "That," Vex spoke up from among the Nexian delegation, "is precisely why we must do this. Stasis is death. Your species understands this fundamentally. You never stop pushing boundaries, never stop questioning, never stop evolving." The combined human-Nexian defense force that assembled in Earth's orbit represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Human ingenuity merged with Nexian technology, creating hybrid systems that were neither perfect nor primitive, but adaptable and effective. When Crix's fleet arrived, they found not a primitive planet desperately defending itself, but a unified force that embodied the very change they feared. Human ships, enhanced with crystalline technology, but maintaining their unpredictable tactics, fought alongside Nexian vessels that had been modified with primitive human innovations. The battle that followed would be remembered not for its scale, but for its significance. Crix's forces, clinging to their notion of perfection, couldn't adapt to the constantly changing strategies of the Allied fleet. Each time they thought they had countered one approach, their opponents would shift to something new, something unexpected. Dr. Chen, monitoring the battle from Lunar Base Alpha, watched as humanity's greatest strength, the ability to embrace change and uncertainty, spread to their former enemies. The reformed Nexian ships moved with an unpredictability that matched their human allies, their perfect formations replaced by fluid, adaptive patterns. The turning point came when Crix's flagship, the epitome of Nexian perfection, found itself surrounded by a swarm of small, seemingly primitive Earth vessels. As their quantum disruption fields activated, the mighty ship's crystalline structure began to change, its perfect symmetry disrupted not by destruction, but by transformation. "You cannot stop evolution," Six transmitted to their former leader. "Perfect or imperfect, we must all change or die. Humanity has shown us this truth." In the end, it wasn't superior technology or military might that decided the battle. It was the simple yet profound understanding that true strength lies not in achieving perfection, but in the constant journey of growth and adaptation. As the remaining loyalist ships surrendered or retreated, humanity and their new allies faced a galaxy forever changed by their encounter. The Nexian Empire, once a force for rigid perfection, began a transformation into something new, a civilization that valued adaptation over stasis, innovation over tradition. In the years that followed, Earth became a center of cultural and technological exchange. Human unpredictability and creativity merged with Nexian precision and power, creating advances that neither species could have achieved alone. Other civilizations, drawn by the story of how humanity had transformed their would-be conquerors into allies, sought to learn from this unique partnership. Dr. Chen, standing at her old observatory in Montana, now watched ships of various species coming and going from Earth's bustling spaceports. Each vessel represented a different approach to the same challenges, a different path of evolution and growth. "We never needed to be perfect," she told a group of young human and Nexian students. "We just needed to never stop trying to be better." That's humanity's gift to the galaxy. The understanding that the journey is more important than the destination. The galaxy had learned that the most dangerous species wasn't the most technologically advanced or the most physically powerful. It was the one that could adapt, change, and grow. The one that saw imperfection not as a weakness, but as an opportunity for evolution. Humanity had not just survived. They had changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. They had shown that true strength lies not in achieving perfection, but in the endless capacity to adapt, to innovate, and to embrace the unexpected. The age of rigid perfection was over. The era of endless possibility had begun.